So, you know what the image circle is. This is the area of a light-sensitive material which can be illuminated by certain lens. Different lenses have different image circles. Smaller the format, smaller the image circle is. But if we pull a lens away from a sensor, by the laws of physics and, most importantly, geometry, image circle is going to grow in size. Just because it will be the base of a cone, in the apex of which is the light transmitting lens. Why it is important for us as photographers? Because it means that lenses designed for smaller formats can cover larger formats if they're far enough. Thus, if the focus is close enough, because the bigger the distance between the lens and image plane, closer the focus will be. I decided to go full bunkers with this concept, and here you have a large format camera with 18 by 24 centimeters image size, which roughly translates to 7 by 9 inches, almost as wide as commercially available film. We also have a wonderful ground beetle, which I just bought from extremely sweet Moscow Granny, which also happens to be an amateur entomologist. This camera bears a kit lens, which is Industar 37 300mm f4.5, and it actually is capable of shooting 1:1 macro ratio in the setup when bellows are fully extended. Sadly, 1:1 macro in large format terms is not so impressive as in full frame world, because the film is so huge. This is how it looks on the ground screen. Okay, let's take one shot as a starting point. We'll be shooting at f16, and considering the bellows extension factor, we need to add a couple of more stops to the equation, but generally we have a plenty of light. Our exposure time will be 1 second, and we will use a lens cap as our shutter. So, as you might see, it's okay technically, it's not really huge, so magnification is not really huge, and also it is a bit soft. I don't really know why. It might be because f16 is too big of a hole still at these kinds of focal lengths, or the lens is simply too soft, or I just missed the focus, which is also possible. What if it's not enough for us? We put large format lenses away and reach out for a smaller format glass. Because of the distance between film and a lens, they will be able to cover this frame. First one is Volna 3 80mm f2.8, a kit lens for 6x6 Soviet cameras and one of the very sharpest Soviet lenses in general. I'll just put it on a table without any attachments to the camera, and let's move it a bit closer. Religion, of course, does not forbid you from 3D printing an adapter between your large format board and mount of your choice, but I don't have a 3D printer, and also I show it to you as a proof of a concept. And if I have any light spilling through the mount, I'll just tape it away. Actually, Volna is a great lens, and already macro ratio is substantially higher. The only thing is, the depth of field is still very shallow. Let's close our lens to f16. With this kind of bellows extension, we should still be okay in terms of diffraction. Okay, why we might want to do all of this? Theoretically, this practice can mitigate some of the negatives both of 35mm and large formats. Larger format allows us to lesser the impact of diffraction, a problem widely known in macro process. By the way, I have a full video on diffraction, please go and watch it. Also, well, bellows allow us to focus super close, closer than any extension tubes. In comparison with the traditional large format, on the other hand, we have again more magnification and also more depth of field, because focal length of 35mm lenses are much lesser. And both depth of field and magnification directly relate to focal length. Sadly, due to unforeseen circumstances, the ground beetle was slightly damaged. But good news are, macro enlargement is huge. A ground beetle is roughly 22mm in size, but on a ground glass it's more than 12 centimeters. So even now we have a macro ratio close to 6:1. I'll make my lights a bit brighter now, because I can't see shit. Now we will count our exposure time, and then we will make a shot. A friendly advice to everyone who is trying this: try to control your focus by moving your subject, and your magnification by moving your back standard. Because at these magnifications, back standard changes focus very slowly. Here you can have even more magnification than this, but now I don't really want to. Our exposure time will be roughly 5 seconds. We cannot work with lens caps anymore because our ground beetle is so close, so I will make my exposure just by turning lights on and off. We're set and ready, let's make a shot. This one came out really good. Probably I needed to close the aperture more, for example, to f16 or to f22, I ended up with f11, but it is still okay. It has that kind of pleasant softness in it. First set of films is being developed, so we have a bit of a time to talk about full-frame lenses. These work greatly too. However, in my experience, everything which is 50mm or more works easily, but everything which is shorter than like 40mm focuses way too closely, even when bellows are not greatly extended. Focus enters the body of the lens, and you start to see the dust inside of the lens instead of your subject. It is possible, however, to counter that by rotating the lens backwards. I really suggest you to experiment with flipping your lenses because some of them just work better that way. For example, this is my Helios 44M. It is sharp and it is surprisingly good with extension tubes on a normal camera, but with this setup, if unflipped, the image is horrendous. Bokeh starts to look like that of that purple abomination recently released by 7 Artisans. But if we flip it, suddenly it works great again. We won't use Helios today because we wanna go more extreme. And this is Mir 1B, 37.5mm f2.8. I hate it, it is horrible, it is very soft, it is bad on digital cameras, it is mediocre on film, it is bad ergonomically. But in this setup, the lens transcends. We will now install this full-frame, wide-angle lens to our large format setup. Flipped, of course, as it is impossible to focus it straight. I'm wrapping my lens with a sock so the light won't spill through a lens hole. Looks like we have even a two-sock job here. Notice that I'm not pushing this lens to the very limit, so if you close the aperture more and extend the bellows more, it is possible to magnify an object even more and get a usable image. But now I start to worry about diffraction a bit, as Mir 1B is bad with diffraction. Plus, I want the shot to be at least half decent aesthetically and not turn out only as a science experiment. There are roughly 50 centimeters of bellows extension. I am planning to let in 12 times more light than usual, and our exposure will be 12 seconds. Let's round it up to 15. We are shooting X-ray film and I'm developing it by inspection, so I'm not extremely worried on exact timings. If you shoot panchromatic film, however, please be more cautious than me. So the head of a ground beetle on a ground glass, pun intended, is roughly 4 centimeters, where in reality it's somewhere near 3 millimeters. So magnification ratio is more than 10 to 1, 12 to 1 to be exact. Let's shoot. Here sadly it looks like our ground beetle just moved a bit, tiny bit, because the edges aren't really sharp and also doubling. I again should have probably closed the aperture a bit more, and it was at f8 as I remember, but we have what we have. You thought that was it? No way! I'm shooting this video on a newly released TT Artisan 14mm f2.8, an ultra-wide angle lens for full-frame cameras, and I will do dirty things to it. As a matter of fact, I'll do exactly the same as I've done to previous lenses. Can you imagine 7:9 format can be fully covered by 14mm lens? Probably the depth of field is also going to be larger as focal length decreases, theoretically. Look, bellows are almost not extended, but because it's an ultra-wide-angle lens, when it's flipped, it easily covers the area. It gives a large cone, so everything is contrary to actual large-format wide-angle lenses, where wider the angle, more problems with the coverage you have. Actually, its head is not that interesting. Maybe we'll change the bug? Let's do it. This one is too dark, and in challenging lighting conditions like this, it looks insipid. I do have this Russian horsefly. Freaking hate those guys, they love to bite hard. Yeah, honestly, this is too much. So much magnification that I don't really understand anything. I see some hair, some pollen particles. I think eyes on a trunk are clearly visible. Let me show you. This is a flight of the bumblebee by Rimsky-Korsakov. One eye of a horsefly is 6.5 centimeters on a ground glass, and in reality, it's like 2 millimeters, roughly 30 to 1 magnification ratio. And we haven't fully extended our bellows because we want to light the subject a bit better, so it should be a bit further from the lens. 40 millimeters of focal length and bellows are extended only by 27 centimeters, so smaller than last time. And this one is very good. I really like the tonality of it. It is also quite sharp in those places which are in focus. Also, probably I could have closed aperture a bit more. It was shot at f5.6 or f8, but it is still probably my favorite photo from the session.